Hello everyone, and welcome to my first impression of the MotoGP 19 video game. So we're just gonna start off by customizing the rider here. This is the first that happens when you enter the game. And as you can see here, I'm just filling out the information here for my personal rider. And we're just gonna start off by doing a quick race in a MotoGP bike. And as you can see here, I'm just going through the tracks. We can see that we have the official tracks as well as some historical tracks, which is really cool. And I'm just checking out the rider settings here, where I also noticed that there is no tuck-in, which I didn't know about before I entered the game. And as of now, we're just gonna go for a 100% AI difficulty, and we're just gonna see how we start off with that. And as I never played this game before, I have to just be careful in the beginning so I don't go for too hard of an AI difficulty. And this penalty setting is very interesting, where we have the tolerant and the strict setting. And we're just going to talk a little bit more about this further into the commentary. But the strict setting is actually very, very strict, to be honest. A little bit too much for my liking. And here we can see something cool where you can choose your practice settings, your qualifying, and also the race and warm-up. So you can select which ones you want to attend. So starting off here in FP1, we're just taking it really carefully. Maybe a little bit too much, to be honest, but we're just checking out the physics just to see how everything works compared to the regular game or the previous titles. So now we're just gonna let these riders by, and we're just gonna try to follow Vinales here. Just to get the braking points and everything. And my first impression when I entered the game was that the physics felt a little bit different. It's a lot more difficult during the turn in, because you can't brake while you're turning in. Not as much as in the previous games, at least. So you can also see that the lean angle is a lot more, or at least it looks like it's a lot more. I think that's also because of the camera, where you get this really low angle when you're riding. So yeah, as you can see here, we get a invalid lap, and here we get an invalid lap, and we also get one coming up here. And that's just what I wanted to show you regarding the strict setting, because I think it's way too strict in my opinion, and you can't ride your normal lines, which you would see the riders do in real life. It's not possible at all. So yeah, this was our qualifying lap. I just did a few rounds in practice just to see how the bike handled, and I couldn't really get a good feeling for the bike, so yeah, I just spent the whole FP1 trying to figure out different settings and just to see if something worked for me. And going into Q2 now, we're just gonna set the lap time, which might be good enough to start within the top 10. And going through here, we can see that we are a lot faster than the other riders, which already seems like we kind of get the hang of the physics. Not really, but it's getting there. So at this point, I probably spent like 30 minutes playing the game during the practice session. And I also feel that the physics correlate more to what you see in real life when it comes to the braking points, as they are further now than what they were in the previous games. It's much more difficult to hit the braking points, and if you're a little bit too late, you really struggle to turn in. As in the previous games, you could just use your rear brake and just brake a little bit more with the front, and you would usually get the bike to stick into the corners, but that doesn't work anymore, which I think is really cool, and it's a real challenge now. And we can see that we're P1 here with a lap of 1:47.160, and that was good enough for a pole. And when we're starting the race here, we're just checking out how the tires were, and here you actually have to choose the tires manually in every session, and that was not the case in the previous games either, where you just had it changed automatically. So going into the first race, as I said, we're starting on pole, putting it into first gear now, ready for the release, and I kind of messed that up. I wasn't really paying attention, so we just dropped it back a little bit, but that just makes it more of a challenge. So it will be really interesting to see how the neural AI, which is a new feature coming to this year's game, how it's performing during the race, and just to see if it makes any changes compared to previous titles. And that is basically just that the AI learns where you are fast and where you're slow, so they can take advantage of your weak points, just like in real life. So during the first lap here, we dropped back to 8th. We gained a few positions now, and now we're just starting the hunt to the front. And as you can see, I'm really curious there, as we see Nakagami going on the inside, which I thought was really neat. It's just cool to have these battles with the AI, and I must say that so far it feels like it's quite a big step up from last year, where the AI is a lot more aggressive and they take a little bit more risks than what they used to do before. And going into the last section here of the first lap, you can see that the field is quite packed, and the riders are pretty much at the same pace so far. As we get a good exit here, going for the pass on Miller. Obviously he's on the Ducati, which should be faster in the game, which it also is. And we're also coming up to his teammate Bagnaia as we go for the slipstream now. And there you can see Miller coming past again, and this just shows that they really put effort into making the bikes even more unique than what they were before, which you also saw in the real race at Mugello, where the Ducatis and also the Hondas had really good speed, where the Yamahas lacked a little bit of top speed, to be honest. I haven't tried the Suzuki, but I would guess that the Suzuki also perform quite bad when it comes to high speed. And now we're just going to try to catch up to Marquez, which is in P5. And during these corners you have to be really patient with the throttle, and if you use too much gas, then you don't really get to go into the corner that fast, and you will just understeer a lot, which is realistic, of course, because the faster you go, the more momentum you bring into the corner, and it's more difficult to turn into the corner. And you can see that I also made a mistake there a few turns ago. Now as we're coming by, you can see that the leader has a little bit of a gap now, which I think was Petrucci, if I'm not mistaken. And now we're just gonna start the third lap here, and so far so good. The pace has been good, and we have been consistent, which was something that I struggled with. As we see, Petrucci gets the fastest lap, and the AI is also faster in the race compared to the qualifying. And here we just have a way too aggressive move on Vinales, and I was going to let him by, but then I saw that Marquez also passed him, so I just thought that I'm just gonna bring it on and just forget about that. And here we just skip to the end of lap 3, where we have catched up to the leaders, which consists of Petrucci, Dovi, and also Rins. And here we can see that the Suzuki really lacks the top speed, and we get a really good drive out at the corner, whereas the Ducatis have amazing top speed. And Rins is not really able to slipstream us down the main straight. And yeah, that also means that they have really focused on the performance of the bikes, and we see a lot of the similarities that we see in real life in the race. So I'm starting to struggle a little bit with the tire wear, because I didn't really expect the tires to really be a problem, but I just discovered throughout the race that they really was graining a lot, and I had some trouble throughout the race to manage the tires and the temperatures. And yeah, here you can really see how much you can lean into the corners and how cool it looks with the new camera, which also lowers to the ground as you go lower through the ground and you turn in more. And I really like that feature, and it really feels like you're more connected to the movements, and yeah, it just feels like you're leaning as well. So that's a really cool feature. So now we're P2. We're about to start our 5th lap here within a few turns, and yeah, this section is really difficult with the new physics, because the bike is taking too much time to change direction compared to last year. So it's really difficult to just get your head around the new physics and the change of the speed of the change of direction. And here you can see that even with slipstream, we're struggling to even get closer to the Ducati of Petrucci. As we also see that Rins is passing Dovi down the main straight, probably on the braking, I would guess. So at this point I really felt confident, and I really felt that we had a good pace, and yeah, that there was no problem at all to follow Petrucci. But then again, I also had the tire wear issue, but I didn't feel that, even though I felt that the grip was losing a lot, I also felt that the speed was still there compared to the opponents. And yeah, I really struggled with this corner because I usually turned in too early, which didn't give me a good run out at the corner, because I had to make a few adjustments to not go over the curb and crash. And also, speaking of the curbs, that is also a difference in this game. If you go on the curbs, they are a lot more bumpy, and they are very unforgiving. And it's a little bit like the last years, where the curbs are either very deadly, or you can use a lot of the curbs. As you can see here, going over the curbs here just gives me a lot of wobbling. And that was usually also a thing throughout the track. When I tried to use curbs, it was really upsetting the bike, and I also had a lot of understeer going over them. But that also makes it a lot more challenging. And in the race, I didn't struggle with the strict setting of the track limits, which really was a problem throughout the practice and the qualifying. As you saw in the examples there, I was not even allowed to do the regular lines, which the official riders did. So I would recommend everyone to use the tolerance setting, which is more like real life. And yeah, throughout the last part here, I think I'm just gonna let you hear the engine noise and the noise in general, the ambient sound. So I'm gonna catch up in a bit. Yeah, there you can see we made a mistake, and that was the end of our race. I just finished the race, but it was not interesting at all. So yeah, I thought I would just cut it short there. And yeah, once you finish your race, you see a lot of the same animations, which they might have reworked and tweaked a little bit. So yeah, that was my first impression of the MotoGP game. I must say that I'm really confident about this year's titles. And in my opinion, it's quite a big step up from last year. Which I also enjoyed a lot, but I think the physics and everything just works better together than what it used to. So yeah, if you're considering to pick it up and you're not really sure if the difference is huge enough, then I would absolutely recommend you picking it up. So that was it for today, and thank you so much, guys. Bye bye.